Once upon a time, in a kingdom that now exists only in the dust of forgotten books and the whispers of the oldest winds, there lived a king and a queen. Their dominion was a land of precarious light, a fragile island of gold and green, bordered by the jagged, broken teeth of the forbidden mountains. There, the sun did not shine, and the Mistress of All Evil, Maleficent, sat upon a throne of obsidian, watching the world with eyes of cold, yellow fire. When the Princess Aurora was born, she was not merely a child, she was a defiance of the dark. Her hair was the color of wheat touched by the noon sun, and her eyes held the startling, impossible blue of a winter morning. To celebrate this tiny, breathing hope, the king ordered a christening feast. The great hall smelled of beeswax, roasted pheasant, and the sweet, heavy perfume of crushed lilies. Lords and ladies in velvets of crimson and sapphire hushed as the three good fairies descended. They were the kingdom's secret guardians, small and fluttering like sparks from a benevolent hearth. Flora, in a gown of poppy red, waved her wand. "My gift," she declared, her voice ringing like a struck chime, "is beauty. Not merely the beauty of the face, but of the spirit, a light that shall not dim." Fauna, clad in the green of moss, stepped forward. And my gift, she whispered, the sound like wind through willow leaves, is song. She shall find melody in the sorrow and harmony in the silence. Merryweather, stout and loyal in the blue of a summer sky, raised her wand, and my gift. She never finished. The heavy oak doors of the castle did not open. They were blown apart. A wind smelling of ozone and the deep, damp rot of a grave shrieked through the hall. The banners ripped, the hundreds of beeswax candles sputtered and died, plunging the court into a gray, suffocating twilight. From the swirling shadows, a figure materialized. She was tall, impossibly thin, and draped in robes blacker than the space between stars. Maleficent. Her horns curved like the ribs of a dead beast, and her skin was the pale green of moonlight on a corpse. She did not shout, she did not rage. She smiled, and it was the most terrifying sight of all. It was the smile of pride, curdled into pure, venomous spite. "Quite a glittering assemblage," she purred, her voice sliding over the crowd like oil. "King Stephen, royalty, nobility, the gentry, and how quaint, even the rabble." She looked at the fairies with half-lidded amusement. I must say, I felt quite distressed at not receiving an invitation. "You are not wanted!" Merryweather cried, though her wand hand trembled. Maleficent laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Not wanted? Oh dear, and to think I came to bestow a gift upon the child." She drifted toward the cradle. The queen lunged, but a wall of green fire forced her back. Maleficent looked down at the babe, her eyes narrowing. She saw the innocence, the lack of guile, and she hated it. It was everything her twisted, prideful heart could not possess. Listen well, all of you. She raised her staff, the orb at its tip glowing with a hypnotic, rhythmic pulse. The princess shall indeed grow in grace and beauty, beloved by all who know her, but the silence in the hall was absolute. Even the fire in the hearth ceased to crackle. Before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel, and in that moment she shall die. The queen screamed, a raw animal sound of grief. Maleficent reveled in it, drinking in their terror like fine wine. With a thunderclap that shook the stone foundations, she vanished into a column of black flame, leaving the scent of sulfur and despair choking the air. In the weeping silence, Merryweather stepped forward. "I cannot undo this dark magic," she said, her voice small. "Her power is too great, but I can soften the blow." She waved her wand, a desperate, glittering blue arc. "Not in death, but just in sleep, the fateful prophecy you'll keep. And from this slumber you shall wake, when true love's kiss the spell shall break." But the king, consumed by fear, did not trust in hope. He ordered every spinning wheel in the kingdom burned. The skies turned black with the smoke of 1,000 pyres, a monument to a father's panic. The fairies, wiser in the ways of magic, knew this was not enough. They stole the child away to a woodcutter's cottage deep in the glen, cloaking themselves in the guise of mortal peasant women. They renamed her Briar Rose. Years bled into years. The princess grew, barefoot and wild, ignorant of her heritage. Yet she was not entirely at peace. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Briar Rose walked through the forest. The sunlight dappled the forest floor, but to her the shadows felt long and heavy. She ran her hand over the rough bark of an oak tree, her brow furrowed. "Why do I feel it?" she whispered to the owl perched above her. "A pulling, a weight in my chest. It feels like someone is waiting for me." She began to sing, a melody that spilled from her lips without thought. It was a lonely tune, yearning for a connection she couldn't name. Nearby, Prince Phillip, a young man who sought the quiet of the woods over the pomp of the court, heard the sound. He was a man of humility, one who preferred the honesty of his horse and the open sky to the flattery of sycophants. He followed the voice, pushing through the brambles until he saw her. They did not fall in love because of a spell. They fell in love because in that glade they were just two souls. They danced near the stream, the water rushing over smooth stones, their laughter mixing with the wind. "I will return," Philip promised, holding her hands. His grip was warm, rough, and real. "This evening I will come to the cottage." But when Aurora returned to the cottage, flushed with the first true joy she had ever known, the illusion of her life was shattered. The fairies, their faces gray with dread, revealed the truth. The crown, the curse, the doom. "You are not Briar Rose," Flora said, weeping. You are a princess, and tonight you must return to a castle you do not know." The carriage ride back was a funeral procession. The castle was cold, vast, and empty. Aurora was placed in a tower room, the door locked. But magic does not need doors. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and blood red, a green spark appeared in the empty fireplace. The wall melted away. Aurora stood, her eyes glazed over, the blue turning to a dull, flat gray. Thump, thump, thump. A rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat echoed in her mind. She walked, not with her own gait, but with the stiff, jerky movements of a marionette, up a winding staircase she had never seen, into the highest, dustiest turret. There, bathed in the sickly green glow of the dying sun, stood a spinning wheel. The spindle was sharp, gleaming with a single point of silver light. "Touch it," whispered a voice from the shadows, not a sound, but a thought placed directly into her brain. "Touch the fatal point, fulfill your destiny." Aurora fought. Inside the prison of her mind, she screamed, "No! I want to live! I want to see him again!" But her hand rose, trembling. The vice of Maleficent's will was ironclad, a crushing weight against Aurora's spirit. Her finger brushed the spindle. A jolt of ice, colder than the deepest winter, shot through her veins. Her heart stuttered and stopped. She collapsed to the floor, a wilted flower, and the world went black. Maleficent's laughter rang from the Forbidden Mountains, and a forest of thorns erupted around the castle. These were not ordinary briars. They were thick as tree trunks, black as iron, and writhing like snakes. Philip, riding to the cottage, was seized by Maleficent's goons and thrown into her dungeon. But the fairies, small but fierce, freed him. They gifted him the shield of virtue and the sword of truth. "The road is blocked," Flora warned as they looked at the wall of thorns. "Then I will cut a path," Philip said. His voice did not waver. He did not fight for glory. He fought for the girl who danced barefoot in the stream. He rode his horse Samson into the nightmare. The thorns lashed at him, tearing his cloak, scratching his skin. He hacked and slashed, the sword of truth glowing with a blinding white light against the dark vegetation. His muscles burned, his breath came in ragged gasps, but he did not stop until he burst into the castle courtyard. And there, blocking the sky, was Maleficent. "You persist?" she shrieked, standing atop the drawbridge. "You insignificant little gnat! You think you can defeat the powers of hell?" "I think," Philip shouted, raising his shield, "that light casts a shadow, but shadow cannot extinguish the light." Maleficent roared, a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. "Then burn!" She threw her arms to the heavens. Violet fire consumed her. Her body elongated, scales erupted from her skin, and with a sound like a mountain cracking apart, she transformed into a dragon. She was colossal. Her breath was a furnace. She snapped at Philip, her teeth the size of swords. He rolled, dodging the blast of fire that turned the cobblestones to liquid. He was battered, his shield dented, the heat searing his lungs. The dragon loomed over him, cornering him against a cliff edge. Maleficent laughed, a deep, rumbling growl in the dragon's throat. "Now," she hissed, preparing the final blast. Philip looked up. He was small against the monster, but he gripped the sword of truth with both hands. "Now, sword, fly true!" the fairies cried, adding their last ounce of magic to the blade. Philip hurled the sword. It was not a throw of strength, but of faith. The blade spun through the smoke, a wheel of white fire. It pierced the dragon's heart. Maleficent shrieked, a sound that shattered windows across the kingdom. She staggered, grasping at the air, before collapsing off the cliffside. As she fell, her form dissolved into black ichor and ash, leaving nothing but a stain on the rocks below. Silence returned to the kingdom. Philip, limping and bruised, climbed the tower stairs. The air was still thick with the dust of the curse. He found Aurora lying on a bier of gold, her face pale as marble. She looked not like a girl sleeping, but like a statue of grief. He knelt beside her. He did not know if it would work. He only knew he had to try. He leaned in, his heart hammering against his ribs, and pressed his lips to hers. It was a kiss of humility, a plea, a giving of breath, a surrender of his own life for hers. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. The dust motes hung still in the air. Then, a flush of pink returned to her cheeks. Her eyelids fluttered. The gray faded from her eyes, replaced by that impossible morning sky blue. She drew a breath, a sharp, gasping inhale, as if surfacing from deep water. She focused on him, and a smile broke across her face. The first dawn after 100 years of night. "Philip," she whispered. As they descended the tower, the thorns outside withered and turned to dust. The king and queen awoke. The kingdom stirred, rubbing its eyes, the nightmare dissolving into the morning mist. They were wed in the great hall, not under the shadow of fear, but in the warmth of a hard-won peace. Maleficent's pride had built a prison of thorns, but Philip's humble courage had forged the key. And so, having walked through the valley of the shadow and emerged into the light, they lived happily ever after.